Welcome to Rekt Academy, I'm Cyclohexanol. Today we're going to talk all about slingshotting. And slingshotting is the piloting maneuver that you can actually pull when you're being kited by somebody who's faster than you and you're in a brawling ship. In order to pull off an effective slingshot, we're going to use our opponent's momentum, speed, and the slow to update auto-piloting maneuvers such as your keep at range and auto-orbit in the server. Here we're going to kind of walk through the theory of how this works and why it works. So, for starters, we have both ships. We have the tower, who is going to be approaching our breacher over here, and we're going to have the breacher who is going to be flying away. Now, in this situation, with the tower approaching the breacher has a lot more speed than the tower, being a micro-warp drive ship on both ends, and the breacher is going to keep a range just fine. So, the tower is not really going to keep up with that breacher at all. So what this tower really needs to do is he needs to turn back around and go the other direction, and then once the breacher will keep going a little farther out, and then once he gets to a certain distance, which generally would be like a nice 28 kilometers or so, the game will start to update and have the breacher start going back towards the tower. Now, when this happens, the tower needs to be looking at the breacher to see him turn and then see the speed start to go up, and then when the tower sees the breacher doing those things, the tower needs to make a shoot for the breacher. Meanwhile, the breacher's still shooting towards the tower, and the tower is going to be able to just get on top of it, secure a web at range, and then get a scram on after that. In this clip, we're in an armor brawling cane, and we're being kited by a Gila. Near the beginning of the clip, we see that he does start pulling away from us, and we don't think that we can actually catch him, which we really can't. So we start piloting directly away from him after looking at his ship, and just getting the best angle with the lowest transversal possible for our burn away. As soon as we see the opposing pilot start to burn back towards us and build up a little speed, we start burning towards him. But since he has kind of a little bit of a transversal and has burned back in, he's going for a conservative reapproach. We end up going and clicking in front of his pathway near the blue arrow that you see there to try and get in front of him a little bit to get the clutch catch. This clip really shows us that once we have the opponent flying towards us, their momentum carries them straight into us, and the keep at range feature adjusts way too slowly for them to actually reverse their direction fast enough to get away from us. In most cases, the best time to start approaching your target is when they have already aligned towards you and have built up a little bit of speed, but they're also further than 25 kilometers away. This is because you want them to build up some momentum before you start closing the distance, but you also want to have time to build up your own momentum to kind of compensate for their speed and agility. When slingshotting a ship that is auto-orbiting you, it is important to remember to pilot towards their vector arrow that you can see on the tactical overlay. If you don't pilot towards their vector and just hit approach, you'll often come up short, as you spend a lot of time trying to fly to where they are instead of where they will be. From this clip, we can clearly see two things. First off, having the web heated and spamming it on your final approach can save a slingshot that would otherwise fail due to the 13-kilometer heated web range as opposed to the 10-kilometer heated scram range. Second, when you're using the slingshot maneuver and taking damage, the longer you spend trying to secure tackle, the less capacitor and tank you'll have in the actual fight. When using this method, it's important to remember a few things. First off, it's important to have optimal timing. When you hit the approach button, you don't want to do it too early. You want to do it once they've had that chance to move towards you a little bit, right? Second off, this piloting technique can be a little bit situational. If your opponent has a lot more agility and or a lot more speed than you, then it probably will not work. Third off, make sure that you don't get tunnel visioned when using this technique. There are about 3 different things you want to look at. First off, you want to look at the ship itself, your opponent's ship. Then you also want to be looking at the opponent's distance and their current velocity. Lastly, if you want to see more examples using this technique, I highly recommend checking out my first video on this channel, the Punisher Alpha Clone PvP, as I do a lot of slingshotting in that video. Special thanks to Sven Holstein for helping us to demonstrate this piloting technique. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to fly dangerously.